Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Haunted Vermont podcast. So, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to actually not give you a spooky episode of some haunted location. In fact, we're going to give you a very interesting history of the Halloween parade. And we have none other to really give us the spooky details is Jared Goodrich. Jared, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Oh, I am good. Obviously, work sucks sometimes, but that's just the way it is. I like to come home and talk with people about their scary stuff. You know what I mean? But in this case, it's
Yeah,
more like Halloween parade, which is awesome at the same time.
yeah.
So, Jared, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are you?
Well, I'm, as I said in the beginning, I'm Jared Goodrich. I'm the owner of the Rutland's local comic book store, Night Legion Comics, and I'm also a historian of the Rutland Halloween Parade.
Yeah, you were mentioning like you wrote like the Halloween parade history, and it's actually I believe you said located at the Rutland Historical Society or somewhere around that neighborhood.
Yeah, so my thesis that I wrote for the parade is published on Rutland's Historical Society's page. You can see it. It'll say Jared Goodrich, and it'll have the title of my thesis, but I can't remember the title for the life of me at the moment.
Well, when you do, just get back to me and I'll put it in the hopefully the description.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's still cool though. I mean, I can only imagine the hard work that and research that had to take place for something like this.
Yeah. To do the research just for the 25-page thesis that I did on it was very, very. You had to go to every detail to make sure you're telling the truth as a historian, because like there's a code behind that. Like, it,
I believe. So Jared, you started your own comic shop. So just real quick for the listeners, where's your comic shop located, and like when did you even start it, and why did you even want to have a comic shop?
uh, so, um, I'm located at 75 Woodstock Avenue, on the left side of the property. 75B you see on Google, but we we started in July, and the whole goal of it dates back since I was probably about 15, 16 years old, and always got heavily into comics and stuff. And I've always wanted to start my own business, a comic book store. And uh, I got the opportunity when I lost my job in December, and the wife told me just follow your dreams and open it. And I was like, sure. And I started the process with the state of Vermont on helping with like businesses advising and stuff like that. And by March the business is registered, and by July we had the store open. So
And that's always the scary part, right? You're entering into a new adventure, and you don't know if it's going to have its ups or downs or be in the middle. So, I mean, hopefully business hasn't been too bad, and at the same time hopefully it picked up for you too, because it is hard to get the word out there nowadays. And speaking of getting the word out, you actually had a TV spot, and I believe you had like a newspaper spot, so it's not like people didn't try to help you spread the word. It was just like, like I said, it's just always hard with the word of mouth, especially nowadays.
yeah. I got real blessed with that. Like my father works for WCAX, and so he just contacted Rutland's WCAX office, and the one person that works it is really into comics, so she really wanted to do the story, so she got me out there, which is great because WCAX, is all over the state and into New York and New Hampshire in some places, so that spread the word for that. And the Rutland Herald is featured among like three other like little smaller newspapers also featured us, so which was really helpful.
Oh, I completely agree, and every little bit helps. So, for everybody listening, if you want some comics to read, especially your superheroes and stuff, that is very big out there, go check out Night Legion Comics LLC on Woodstock Ave there. That really help people too is if you know where Awesome Graphics is, it's right next door.
Yep, exactly. They're really good landlords.
I'm glad to hear that too. So, and that's always hard to find nowadays. A good landlord. So anyway, Jared, like let's give the people what they definitely clicked on this episode for. So why not give us a rundown of the Halloween parade?
All right, so going back to my early research of the parade and everything, in the beginning, I was using for my research, like there's a documentary, or not, there's a documentary of it on, you can find it on PEG TV. It airs on PEG TV every year, and I met the producer of that director, the director of that documentary, and I asked him, like, where did you get this information? Do you know who I could talk to? Stuff like that. And I got pushed around not pushed around, but like sent to different places. And like, I could get what the local narrative was, which is like the parade started in 1959. And then the year later, Batman was implemented and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, so that I'll have to do more research. And then luckily, if you're a state of Vermont resident, you can actually get access. It's a state website you can use to register yourself, and you can actually see all newspapers in the state of Vermont, and a handful of newspapers were able to digitize like over 100 years of newspapers in Vermont. You could Google it; it's easy to find, but I started access to the Rutland Herald, and they go back to as far as like 1857, which was great, but the parade didn't start until later. So I started in 1959, where the narrative that has been told the last few years of Tom Fagan and the Halloween parade, and I looked through the newspaper multiple times. I was looking through weeks upon weeks between September all the way to October on anything about the Halloween parade. And come to find out in that narrative, it's wrong. That year, when the rec department wasn't able to fund anything, and they were able to scramble up enough money to have a little Halloween dance at the rec department, which was on Monroe Street at one time. And that day that they decided to do a horror walk, but that's the only thing I could find about 1959. And then somebody put me towards the municipal records. And she said that it's not 1959. Check the municipal records. And I said, okay. And I looked, and the parade didn't start until 1960. So I had to change the entire narrative when I started writing this. In 1960, the parade was established by the rec department, and it was finally ran, and it was a big success. And during that, the next year, a man who had watched the parade prior to it, Tom Fagan, was friends with the director of the superintendent. The superintendent of the rec department. He was friends with him, and he's, can I have a meeting with you? I have an idea. And for 1961, they implement Batman to the parade. And Tom Fagan said this is going to work, and so the rec department backed them, and Batman started walking in the parade. And by 62, they had ready to have a much bigger turnout because of the popularity of Batman, but unfortunately, that year it did cancel. It was one of only 3 other times it's ever canceled, being this year and last year, but which I'm still a little salty about. By 1963, the parade had almost doubled in size, and it was gaining popularity. More and more superheroes would join in with Batman, and he would have the Night Legion float implemented, and it would have Batgirl and Robin and Batmite, which was his daughter, and it got even more popular. And by 1964, Tom Fagan was no longer just Batman leading Batman in the parade. He would gain the marshalship of the parade, and Batman would lead the parade years after that. And it became even more popular. He meets in 1964, that same year, just before 1965, he meets Roy Thomas, the second editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics in 1970 after Stan Lee. And they make friends, and they go to parties together, and they start to work on how they can make the parade even more popular. And in 1965, it becomes I think by 1965, it becomes the nation's largest Halloween parade. And it's just filled with different Marvel superheroes, different DC superheroes, and it is wild. In the 60s, superheroes at their height, Marvel and DC, I think DC was going into its silver age, or was still in its golden age and almost to its silver age, and Marvel was going, or was already in its silver age. So people were buying comics left and right, and the popularity of the parade got bigger. In 1966, with the help of the 1966 Batman TV show, it gets even more popular because they had been seeing Batman for years, and Batman was blowing people away in 1966. So, and the narrative continues like that. 1967, it gets bigger and bigger. At 68, and then 69, and then 1969, Avengers number 83. Oh no, 1970, Avengers number 83 would then feature the Rutland Halloween Parade for the first time in the comics, and thereon it would go. It would lead into, I think it's 8 total, that led up to the very first Marvel and DC crossover event in the 70s. And then thereon, it's been featured in 19 different comics, and it's talked about in the comic book world constantly. Tom Fagan is a local celebrity and legend now, and he was Mr. Halloween for years, and by the time 2008 hit, when he died, they weren't sure the parade was going to continue after he died. And it did. I'm sure a lot of people are happy about that because it's such a deep-seated celebration in Rutland that people just enjoy. And as its historian, it's wonderful to know all this information and to record this because it's a piece of Rutland that is needed, and I'm happy to be a part of it now. But yeah, I think that sums up I can tell the story about one funny story about one of the comics, and it was in Marvel's What If Ultron had won, and it was a compilation story of different stories of how Ultron would have won. And in one of the stories, he did win, but not all of the superheroes died, and they all just scattered to the wind. And because the Rutland Halloween Parade existed in that universe, Spider-Man had participated in the parade, and so he thought Rutland was nice enough to retire to, and so he does. And Wolverine later on comes out of retirement. He's sick of hiding from Ultron, and he gets Spider-Man to join with him. But when Wolverine pulls up to his house in Rutland, he mutters the words, "I hate Rutland, and I hate Vermont, and I hate its winter." And I was just like, I just find it funny that it has this tie to so much where like popular characters are like this, have that kind of story.
Fascinating when you hear that type of story. Now, I don't know if this would be like knowledgeable anyway, but what kind of floats have there been in the past like couple years that are memorable to like you, or maybe some that you heard about while researching the Halloween parade?
Well, for me is when I moved down here 5 years ago, my first experience with it, I was just intrigued by all the different floats because you could tell that each person who gets one and is prideful about being in this parade, and it's like an honor to be so in this parade. And so they do, each float is so wonderful, and you could just see the enthusiasm of each person that gets to do this float. The skeletons and stuff leading the parade were a big thing for me when I first came here. I thought it was cool, but I've heard various different stories from different people because you hear so many stories from other people about their experiences with the parade, and I didn't get to put a lot of them into the story because I hadn't gone that far. But like I knew I think it was in the late '80s, my friend said that his school had a giant T-Rex built, and it was being marched down the street, and it got caught on a caught on a telephone wire, and it cut the T-Rex's head off in the middle of the the parade. Um, it's just silly stories and fun stories. It's always nostalgia that I hear when people talk about it, and it's always never negative.
Well, that's good that it's always a fun thing. So, and yes, you are a little salty that it has been canceled for 2 years in a row now, which sucks.
Yeah,
But I mean, at least hopefully we can better prepare for next year. But all at the same time, it's kind of like, come on, people, we could have had the Halloween parade on Friday when it was very nice weather.
yeah.
So
I'm
I don't.
my biggest complaint about this year, and I won't go too in deep into it, but the biggest thing is they gave no detail on why they canceled it, and that's probably what irritates me the most.
Oh boy. Well, Jared. Is there anything else you want to add to the Halloween parade thing? Um, I mean, I know it seems kind of a short thing and stuff, but like you said, you haven't really fully even dived into all the years. So I guess
Yeah,
my thing is like when you do dive into more of it and stuff, would you be willing to come back to talk a little bit, maybe more and maybe some in depth of it, so maybe like
yeah,
just a little bit more juicy details.
yeah. No, it definitely, and like I know for a fact that like I missed some little facts about the parade and everything. Like they stuff like I thought of it after like the jack-o'-lantern thing that's still being held they held it this year, um and like all the different programs that work into it, and the stories that there's other stories that I had heard that like I couldn't put into my thesis because they're not exactly appropriate to write in the history of like this Mr. Halloween, but to censor most of it, but they had some wild parties with these comic book writers that used to come up and help the parade.
All right, Jared. Well, before we end this, so because we are the haunted Vermont here, so I guess my question is, what is your take on the paranormal, and have you experienced anything yourself here in Vermont? And the final question is, what is the weirdest, creepiest story you've heard about Vermont?
Oh boy, I've always been a big skeptic of the paranormal, because a lot of the times the science and science and stuff can disprove a lot of things that are happening. But it wasn't until I moved to my apartment above my in-laws, and my now wife says to me when I'm moving in that, oh yeah, this place is haunted, and I'm like, haha, yeah, yeah, funny. And the first time the first year I'm here, and it was sometime at night, and I'm walking out of our bedroom, and I see the air freshener, which is a bigger one, that sprays, and it levitates a good 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and then flies across the room at me. And it was like, okay, I don't know how that happened, but okay, I'm gonna just go freak out about this and tell Jenna. And she blatantly turns to me and she goes, oh, Grandpa just said hi. And since then, I've noticed things disappear where we've never been able to find it ever again. I've seen one time one of our pots went missing, and I don't know how you misplace a pot. Our kitchen and our tiny little apartment, you can't misplace that. And it was found in a closet, shoved into the closet and buried. I went to go find something in that closet, and it was buried behind everything. And it's like, okay, that's a little weird. And then the shadow people started, and I would see somebody standing in the doorway every so often. And the phantom doors opening and closing in front of us, and footsteps in front of us. Yeah, there's so many stories I could tell. So I wholeheartedly now believe in some sort of afterlife or alternative universe, or the paranormal in general. I'm more of a believer now than anything. I do believe still you could debunk a lot of the stuff, but I definitely now believe that there is
something more to it.
something. Yeah, there's more. There's something more to it. And the weirdest story I've ever heard, really, it's just all the various stories that Joseph Cicero writes, that, like his Monster Guide and the Vermont Ghost Guide and everything. Is just like, that was my introduction into Vermont's weird stories and the weird things happening, and it was Joe Cicero. So
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Jared. Well, maybe what we can do is bring you back on, and maybe you can talk more about some of the paranormal experiences that you've witnessed, and we can go from there as well.
all right.
But Jared, it was lovely to have you on. Thank you so much for your time and to give us a little brief history of the Halloween parade. Hopefully, we can get you back for more. to have a more tasteful treat for the research for as well.
Okay.
And hopefully people that have listened to it like the idea of this and want to hear more. And you said something again that like you people can in fact read this, but you're just having a hard time remembering where it is. So it's probably like Vermont Archive Record or something, or Rowan Historical Society, probably. So I mean, it gets around. Obviously, people can always talk to you about the Halloween parade history at your shop there, Night Legion Comics LLC, located on Woodstock Avenue here in Rutland, Vermont. So, I mean, I guess for a closer, Jared, uh, for the people listening to this episode, what would you like to tell them?
Yeah, you could stop on by to our store. We're open Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 7 Wednesday through Friday, and 10 to 7 on Saturday, and 10 to 5 on Sunday. So we're there, and we look forward to seeing everyone.
All right, Jared. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. Until next time, uh, till we meet again, basically.
Yes, sir.
All right. So for everybody else that is listening, remember, keep your eyes and ears open because you just never know when an apparition is going to appear in front of you, and you won't even know if they're solid or if they're see-through. Until next time, Howard Podolsky, and this was Haunted Vermont.